Hey guys, welcome back to JDMods. We are continuing the FD RX7 project today, and we are finally starting the reassembly process. I bought this car nearly 2 years ago now, maybe a year and a half ago. It's been a long time in the making, but we finally have it to a good point where we can start building it back up. So let me go ahead and show you guys what we're going to be doing in today's video. I want to try and make these videos a reasonable length so that you guys don't have to wait too long between videos and so that they're not super long. But basically you can see I have a lot of assembly to do on my RX7. Before we talk about anything, can we just talk about how cool these side markers look? I got brand new side markers. They're not OEM, but they're just orange OEM style side markers. The ones that came with the car were tinted black, and I just love how that orange looks on the yellow. Very fresh, very clean looking. But over here we have a bunch of parts to install. We got the entire rear subframe, fuel brake lines, front suspension parts, front crash bar. We got like brake, clutch pedals, that blue bin's all wiring harnesses, and then this black bin is more wiring harnesses, and just tons of parts. So it's kind of hard to know where to start. What I did do was write down the order of things that I removed. Sorry it's blurry, but that's okay, you don't have to read it anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to try and make it a roller by doing everything kind of from the floor down. So my subframe, suspension, gas tank, stuff like that. And one of the first things we're doing is cleaning the subframe. Here's the front subframe. It's kind of hard to clean stuff in the winter because it's minus 18 degrees Celsius outside right now, so it's kind of hard to want to go outside. I have this kiddie pool. It's kind of dirty, but it should work for what we want. I'm going to be spraying this down with degreaser, degreasing as best I can. Then I have a little bucket of hot water here to rinse off the degreaser, hit it with some wire wheel, and then we're going to paint it with POR 15 because it's not rotted, so it doesn't need to be repaired at all, but it does have some surface rust. So here's a good before shot. Let's go ahead and clean her up. Alright, so here on the ground is my degreased and wire brushed subframe. You can see there's lots of surface rust, not worth repairing, but I want to make it look a little better. So what I'm going to use is some POR 15. And I used to use this all the time, but I had a bigger container of it, like a quart size container. But what happens is this stuff dries so hard that it's pretty much impossible to seal the container after you open it. So this is a 6-pack I got from Canadian Tire. It works out to a very similar price per the volume, but if a container dries out, you don't ruin the entire amount. So I picked up some POR 15 and some cheap paint brushes, and of course I got to use some gloves because this stuff is not coming off your hands or hair or wherever it gets on. So I'm going to POR 15 the top of the subframe before installing it, and then I'm going to actually paint the bottom after installing it on the car. So I'm going to go paint that up and I'll throw it on. Subframe turned out really well with the POR 15 after I degreased it. Nice jet black, got a little bit of cardboard here and there stuck to it, but it's no big deal. Really happy with how it looks, and of course it'll protect it. And also quickly wanted to show you guys while that was drying, I threw on some new bolts for the fenders, and I used these dress up bolts for the fenders, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw this subframe on so we can put on the front suspension and see the wheels on the yellow. Subframe is on. The jet black looks really good against the yellow engine bay in my opinion. You'll barely be able to see it, but I'll know it's there, and if you do catch a glimpse, it'll look really nice. Next up, we're going to be installing the front hubs with arms. You can see the rotors are quite rusty, and we're rocking some blue painted calipers right now. That might all change. I'm just gonna rush to put all this together so that we can make it a roller. It needs to roll out of here so that I can paint some of the accessories. So right now we're kind of just not rushing, but I'm putting it together, not doing everything perfectly like I might replace some suspension components. But we actually do have some BC Racing coilovers that came with the shell when I bought it, so that's a huge score. They're in really good condition, so I'm going to be using those for the front and rear, obviously. So let's go ahead and put these on, because once those hubs are on, I can finally see how the work reps look on the car. Suspension wasn't too hard to put on. It's relatively simple on the FD. One thing I'll mention is to hold it straight, you have to install your steering rack, of course. So I got the steering rack on, but the end links are just awful condition. I can't even fit the castle nut back on. Boots are all torn, so I had to put on a little hose clamp to at least hold the wheel straight so I can mount my rims up. It's funny because this is, of course, is painted a yellow Honda color, and the blue brakes makes it look like a spoon RX7, which is kind of fun. Obviously I'm not planning on leaving it like that, but that's how it looks right now. So the next step will be to install this sway bar just to get it off the ground, but I'm really impatient. So what I would like to do is install one of these rims on the front right hand corner to see how they look. The wheel is on and it looks awesome. I'm really happy with how the yellow turned out with the silver lip work reps. There's a quick shot of it. It's really hard to get a good angle with Ali's car here and up on jack stands, but there's a quick preview. Obviously that is not the next step, but I want to do it really quickly. Anyway, let's get back to installing the rest of the parts. Bit more of a progress update. I decided to take the wheel off, stack them all four over there just so they're out of my way for now. Of course, the next logical step would be the rear subframe, but on the RX7, the fuel filter is actually right above the rear subframe, mounted on this little bracket right here. And this is a probably original fuel filter, to be honest. So I bought a new one, but it's coming in the mail, so I can't mount this, which means I can't mount the rear subframe or the heat shields. So all this stuff is on hold for now. So I opened up a new box which contains some engine bay goodies. You can see there's a few new things in here, just a few minor things. I won't go over them individually. But I did get some new OEM hood rod clips and stuff in there, so that's a nice little touch. It's way too early to install that, but I did anyway. And also in that box was the main horseshoe harness for the RX7. This goes from the driver's side footwell all the way through the engine bay, front crash bar, into the passenger side footwell. Huge wiring harness. This is all just one harness. You can see mine unfortunately is not in the best condition. It's missing some conduit. It's really dirty, and this was a LS swap car, so there's a few cut wires and a few messy things like that. So I'm going to take some time and go over this. I'm going to film a few things as they come up. I'm not sure if I'm going to bother with a time lapse. It's not going to look like much except for me stripping off some of this conduit. And gonna re-electrical tape where I need to, like right there. Here's a fun little wire just sticking out of the harness. I did download the wiring diagram for this car, so I can hopefully try and figure some of that out. But yep, look at this. Oh, this is gonna be a fun time. So I'm just gonna go over this with a fine-tooth comb, label some stuff if I need to, fix up this. And yeah, here's another before shot. I'll show you guys when it's all fixed up. So that was tougher than expected, but it is done. Hopefully you guys can tell on camera how much better it is. It wasn't actually too hard. Majority of it was just re-cutting kind of coating the wires with electrical tape and conduit. There was a few small things like the one wire that was just randomly sticking out. I found out it was for the fuel pump resistor, which you can just delete by grounding the ECU side of the fuel pump relay. So I'm always going to be getting full voltage to the pump, which is better for power, just not as good for reliability, but that's fine. And then the only other thing was the ECU plug had a green wire that I could not figure out where it went for the life of me. I figured out is the brake signal to the ECU, which as far as I can imagine would only be important on an automatic ECU. So I'm just going to leave it kind of there, and if I need it later I know where it is, if I figure it out or something. So anyway, there's the harness. I'm going to go ahead and fish it through the firewall all the way around and see how it looks. Harness is officially installed. It wasn't super easy, as I'm sure you guys could imagine. An old crusty harness. Wasn't 100% sure on the routing in certain spots, but as you can see, it goes all the way from the passenger side footwell around the engine bay to the driver's side footwell. I think it looks quite nice and cleaned up. Definitely better than it would have before with the kind of cracked engine loom. I'm really liking how the yellow and black theme is coming together. Definitely going to take that into consideration when picking like engine bay accessories like intakes and blow-off valves and stuff. Now anyway, thanks to the magic of the internet and how long that engine harness took, I got a box of parts in the mail with some brake rotors and suspension bits, including my new fuel filter. So here's my new one installed on the bracket and kind of like little evap hardline assembly here. Here's the old one that's going to get recycled. Now I can install this above the rear subframe, which means I can then install the rear subframe, heat shields, and that's probably where I'm going to end this video. Alright, so I just got my two front rims on. Reason I did this is to weigh the car down in the front because it's finally time to install the rear subframe. But I thought I would also show you guys the color combo and how it looks with the new rims. I even polished up the rubber a little bit with some back to black or whatever on the rubber. I really like how these rims look. It's going to be a little lower than that, but not slammed. This is on BC Racing coilovers, I think I've mentioned in the past. So we're going to be able to dial in that ride height perfectly. We're running a 235/40 R18 up front, which I think should work really well, and I believe a 265/35 18 on the rear. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and install the rear subframe. I've got the coilovers and the sway bar already installed, so we're going to get that rear subframe in and finally be able to see my car with all four wheels to end the video. Subframe is on. Wasn't too bad, just a little bit tough to get in position, but I was able to mount on my final wheel. Obviously it's on jack stand fitment right now. Coilover is just hanging loose, but hopefully you guys can get an idea. It's kind of hard to show you with Ali's car right beside it, but there's basically what the RX7 is going to look like, just with much better fitment and of course completed. But I think that's where I'm going to leave it off in today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed the little bit of assembly here and look forward to the rest of the videos on this project. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.